and welcome to the SoxProspects.com podcast. We're the web's #1 source for information on the Boston Red Sox from top to bottom, from Fort Myers to Worcester, across the Pike to Fenway, and all stops in between. Thank you for listening. My name is Chris Hatfield. I am the executive editor of Sox Prospects, and I am joined, as always, by our director of wait. You're not Ian.
I'm not Ian. My name is Mike.
I'm messing around. I am joined by the dude himself for the start of this episode. Our editor-in-chief, president, head honcho. What the hell is your actual title? It's EIC, I think. You're the EIC, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Technically. Mike Andrews. I joke, but Mike, we are here for a very special reason today. And I will let you bear the good tidings, I guess. The floor is yours, sir.
Hi, Chris. Happy to be on. It's been a while for me coming on.
It's been a hot minute. When was the last time you were on? We were just talking with Melon. When's the last time you were on?
Probably 5 years.
It's more than that.
No, I was on one time.
Oh, okay. For like an anniversary,
for a short segment
for
or something.
15.
For a real episode, it's been a while. But back to your original question.
Yes.
We are here for the site's 20th anniversary, launched September 20th, 2003.
That's wild. I still can't get over this.
It feels very weird.
It's very weird. So this is the 20th anniversary episode. We are what is 20th? Is 20th silver, or is that?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Paper.
No,
paper.
If y'all want to give us paper, I can one kind of paper y'all can give us, and they do give us a lot. I shouldn't say that. We have very generous listeners and readers, but
Emerald anniversary.
Don't get us emeralds.
Don't get us look good. I think I would look good in emeralds.
I'm sure you would. Green looks good on you. I've seen you on St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day is something we can maybe get into. But anyway, it's the 20th anniversary, so we are recording one. It's probably going to be 2 episodes. We'll see when I edit it. But we wanted to look back at the history of the site, at the people, the places, the things that went down, the evolution of the website, the evolution of the podcast, maybe not quite so much. We'll touch on it, but this spring is the 10th anniversary, I think you said, Mike, of the podcast. 15th. Okay. Yeah, I guess that makes more sense. This brings I guess we did do that pretty quick. Wow. This brings the 15th anniversary of the podcast. So we'll focus more on the podcast then, probably, just because we're trying to keep this to a couple episodes that are of listenable length. So we're going to start. We're definitely going to be joined by Ian, but we've got a couple of guests. We're going to be joined by Chris Mellon. We're going to be joined by John Mioli. We're going to be joined by James Dunn. We're going to look back at the history of the site, at how we've grown into what we are today. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit of self-congratulations, but dang it, after 20 years, I think we've earned it. So
yeah, we earned one, sure.
Yeah, and plus I think the context is good. It's like, because for one thing, we do get asked, Mike, right? Like, how can I start a Mets website?
Yeah.
How can I start? And there are websites that exist for different teams. I mean, we went into this with Jim Callis on the recent episode. I actually had to cut that conversation down a little bit because we went a little long on that piece. But like, there are websites for other teams that do, at least in some ways. They're different and cover other things. Some ways they do cover prospects, but just how we got here, because it's not a matter of hopping on Twitter and just acting like you know what you're talking about
Right.
To get to this point. So we wanted to look
there are
back
people
at
that
it.
try to do it that way.
You can. I mean, good luck, but good luck having the staying power. And part of it, and we'll definitely get to this, of just like, it takes a village, right? This isn't just
Absolutely.
the Mikey and Chris and James show. It's taken a lot of folks to get us to where we are today, both at the site and outside the site, providing us opportunities. And we'll get into all of that. Really quick before we get into everything, just want to say, if you want to support the show, you can rate and review us on iTunes, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever it is that you listen to the show. And tell a friend, tell a neighbor, tell someone it's our 20th anniversary. Say, hey, where were you 20 years ago? Well, guess what these guys were doing 20 years ago? They were starting a website. So what have you done with yourself lately? That's the best way to spread the word about any kind of artistic work. And you can support us on patreon.com/SoxProspects. You can send emails to podcast@SoxProspects.com as well. If you have questions about the anniversary of the show, actually, hit us up. Maybe before we get to episode 2, I'll tack on some emails at the end if people have questions, or we'll get to them in future episodes. So hit us up. But without any further ado, Mike, let's start with just kind of, let's set the scene. The year is 2003.
I
And
might
this
go back
started
a,
as,
I might go back a touch further than that.
okay, it's prior to 2003. Set the scene. This is your baby. So how did we, maybe not the conception, that's gross, but um tell us how does this site start? How does this idea germinate in your head, and how do we get to the
Sure.
start of the site?
So I'm a guy that likes to keep lists and that type of thing.
Yes, you
And
do.
I've always loved baseball, Red Sox, grew up in um, uh, Massachusetts, New Hampshire my whole life. Started uh, tracking and kind of ranking Red Sox prospects in around 97 or 98, but I was doing it in like Excel spreadsheets. And then
What
I
are
just
some names at that point that we're talking, like 97, 98?
probably like Brian Rose,
Okay.
Michael Coleman. Um,
I remember Brian Rose. I do not remember
not
Michael Coleman.
Michael Coleman was like a speedy outfielder, if I remember correctly, but it's a long time ago.
Fair.
So started doing that, and then I started talking on message boards with other Red Sox fans, and then after I graduated uh, college, I went to become a web designer, um, and then I worked as a web designer from about 98 to 2002. But during that time period, I got laid off like a bunch of times. It was the internet boom and bust.
Mhm.
So like people, I would get this great job, and then the company would be like, okay, this isn't working. We're gonna go in a different direction. So I decided to kind of change paths and went to law school. But I
You want to
also
say
wanted,
why? Because I didn't know this until fairly recently.
yeah, what
Part
say
of
what?
why, part of why you went to law school.
Well, part of why I went to law school because I wanted to be the next Theo Epstein.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't know this until
Yeah,
literally like last
yeah,
year.
right. Yeah, I mean, I was like, Theo went to law school, so maybe I can do it. But
Sure.
that was just a pipe dream part of it. It was mostly to like
Right. Right.
go to a real career. Um, so go to law school, but I also wanted to kind of keep my web design skills fresh. So I took my spreadsheets and I put a website together. I had a website portfolio uh, website that was just called mikeandrews.net. And I made a page called mikeandrews.net/Sox prospects. And I had all the rankings there. And this was probably late 2002, early 2003. It was complete garbage. I still have some like drafts of it on my old backup
Awesome.
drives.
Awesome.
We're talking guys at that time, the decent system like Freddie Sanchez, Hanley, Jorge De La Rosa, starting with Uke a little bit, Shopik, and Lester. So then I decided after the getting laid off the last time, um, to and I knew, so there was this period where I knew I was going to law school and I was working a temp job until law school started. So I had a little extra time, and then I started building out SoxProspects.com the late spring summer of 2003, which included I got married during that time and had my honeymoon during that time. And I'm
I can't
working.
get over this piece of it.
So my wife, God bless her, um,
Why is she still with you?
seriously, um, we're hanging out on our honeymoon. We're in Hawaii, having an amazing time for 2 weeks. But then, you can't party your entire 2 weeks. So I would go sit by the pool and continue working on the website a little bit, building it up from scratch. It takes a while to build something from scratch. So I'm doing it on my honeymoon, right? I'm an asshole. I admit it.
No, I mean, it is what it is. No, you have downtime on your honeymoon, man. Some
Yeah,
people read books, some people
right.
build websites, if that's
Yeah,
what you're into. And this is something I relate to because and we'll talk about this, like our brains work similarly.
yeah,
That's part of why we get along so well. And
right.
like, I get it. That's your downtime. It helps your brain to logically order things and create a website. I get it. Yes.
100%.
So
Um,
continue. Sorry.
so then, after all that back end work, the site launched on September 20th, 2003, 20 years ago. I thought it would just be for like kicks and giggles. I didn't think it would take off. And I just started kind of pimping it on some of the message boards I was on at the time. One was called Sports Boards, and one was Sons of Sam Horn.
Mhm.
And probably at that time, it probably just had a rankings page.
Mhm.
I think there was a draft history page, and about 60 player pages. Probably
Did you
everybody
have
knows
player
this.
pages at that
There's
point?
about 250, 300 players in the system at any given time. So we only had about 60 then, and the scouting reports were very thin.
Hmm.
Um, so like I said, top prospects were the guys I just mentioned: Lester, Uke, Shopik, Hanley, David Murphy, Del Carmen. I had Chad Span ranked above Hanley.
Two different lists too,
Yeah,
right? It
yeah,
was a hitter list and a pitcher list.
that's correct. I just thought that I had this philosophical idea that like they shouldn't be ranked together because you can't compare the two, which I guess has some semblance of reason behind it, but that didn't end up being too popular.
I get it though. I mean, and you haven't even said the guy who you had number one for the pitchers, which I actually bore out okay.
It was Jorge De La Rosa,
Yes.
and I think the timing of it was he got traded like 6 weeks later or something. Did he
Oh,
get traded
really?
on Thanksgiving of that year, maybe?
Yep. And wasn't
That's
Kevin
a very
Youkilis the
fuzzy
number one
number.
hitter at the time?
I think so.
Yeah, because I mentioned it to him when I on Nesson this spring because he was in the
Yeah,
booth and we were talking about it. I was
yeah.
like, well, actually, because he was like, yeah, I was never a highly ranked prospect. I was like, actually, beg to differ.
Except by us.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So you launch with these two different lists, and as I recall you talking about it, it's you just kind of sending it around to your boys, right? Most of whom
Yeah.
you've met at this point.
Yeah, I posted on a couple message boards.
Mhm.
I had some high school and college friends that are big Red Sox fans. Shout out to my friend Keith, who's been probably the first reader, and eventually would join the staff for a little bit. But uh, so it was very slow for probably 6 months. There wasn't much going on. We did launch the message board, our own message board. I think it was probably within the month of September, or like within a month of the first launch, and that had nothing there except it was just me and Keith talking to each other for the first 6 months.
It was like easy boards or something, right?
Yeah, that sounds
Which
right.
became Yuku. No, not
Yeah,
Yuku. Yuzu. No,
no, I
Yuku.
think
I
it was
think it's
Yuku. Yeah,
yeah. Which I always want to say Hulu now, but it's not Hulu. So okay, so you started at that point. When do you start updating it? Like, was it right away that you would tweak it, or
yeah, definitely tweeting, updating it pretty regularly. But like again, I didn't have. It was like top 10 or top 12 hitters and top 12 pitchers, and then I had like other weird lists that were like on the radar. There were like lottery ticket guys that weren't ready to be like guys that had good stats in the DSL.
Mhm.
Didn't really want to rank them, but hey, this guy's hitting 360 in the DSL, keep them on the radar, that type of stuff. And I think I would update that every few weeks. But then again, it was the off season for that first year.
It's
For that,
wild to me. Like I'm looking right now at the screenshot that's in. For those who are visual people and want the companion to this, one thing you can do is Jen McCaffrey at the Athletic wrote an article about like how the website started. You should go check out. Um, I'm looking at the pitching list, and we mentioned Jorge De La Rosa number one, John Lester number two.
spelled wrong.
What's that?
His
Spelled wrong. Yeah,
the name
John.
John spelled wrong.
I wasn't on the site yet. But I mean, there's Kyle Jackson who I faced in high school, and the amount of stuff that's like in the DNA of the site still that's already there is
Right.
wild to me.
Yeah.
It's the rankings, it's the format, it's the name, age, position, stats, grade, notes.
Right.
That's still the front page of the website.
Right. Once you start the skeleton, it's hard to kind of change the.
Yeah, we've been asked about it.
We
It's
can
not
talk
happening.
about it eventually, but we did
Yeah.
have one overhaul of the design, but like it's hard to sway too much from it once you lay down the bones of it.
Mm-hmm. And so you've got this message board going on. So it's basically the message board, and the main site, which was just like the rankings. Did you have the rosters page at that point? I think you had the rosters page.
Probably
some point
not the first 6 months, but
Okay.
maybe 6 months to a year in or so. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. So you've got that, and you've got the message board, and you've got like about 60 player pages. Is that about what it was
Yeah.
at that time?
Yeah.
Did you have the wiki yet? When did we do the wiki? No.
That was
Okay.
that was a ways away. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. All right.
That was a bad idea.
Well, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. There were some things that came out of it that were good, but at any rate, that's getting a little in the weeds. So I guess this kind of to do the deposition thing. What happened next?
So probably not much happens until late 2004, early 2005. It just started kind of take off.
Mhm,
And I think for a few reasons that were not necessarily in my control.
mhm.
I mean, the World Series championship didn't hurt.
Right,
The
right.
how good the farm system was pretty I mean, they had Pedroia, Papelbon, Brandon Moss, Craig Hansen, Clay Buchholz, Jed Lowry, and people were interested. And there just wasn't ever one. People talked about prospects on Sons of Sam Horn or on other message boards, or you could go read Baseball America, but that was all prospects. It just was one place where you could go to figure out, hey, what's next for the Red Sox?
And at the time, and this is going to be something that when we're talking to different folks on these episodes, keep in mind there is no Twitter.
Right.
At the beginning of this, Baseball America is basically the only outlet that's talking about prospects at all, right? Talking about the minor leagues.
I think that's correct. MLB.com isn't really a thing.
No, there's no MLB pipeline yet.
Right.
There's no MLB.com probably, but it's probably just covering the major leagues. So it's basically Baseball America, but you get this GM who comes in who says he's going to build the $100 million player development machine,
Yeah.
which was huge. I mean, that was Theo Epstein's MO right when he came in. And we had that huge draft in 05 where they had 5 first round and first round supplemental picks where they hit on 4 of them.
Right.
Like, it's wild. So just the timing works out
Yeah.
perfect.
It's kind of good luck. And then we expanded a little bit that year. That's when we built the transactions page, the team rosters page.
News page.
I think we had player pages for every player in the system, outside of the DSL, and the 40-man page, probably by the end of 2005 season.
Do we want to just go? I know you're the king of lists and
Right.
numbering, and I'm about to mess with it. I'm sorry. Do we want to go straight chronological?
Whatever you want to do, man. You're driving.
No, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I usually am, especially even down in Fort Myers. But although actually, do you usually drive? I don't remember.
I don't like to drive down there. I
Okay.
actually have very good sense of direction, except in Fort Myers. Like I refuse to figure out where anything is, and I just use GPS or have Ian tell us where to go. And it's up.
Or we should give a shout out to the king of internal sense of direction. If I remember right, and correct me if I'm wrong, was Jonathan Singer.
He was actually
Savant level.
Yeah.
like
he had gone to Fort Myers 1 year, and then the next year he knew where everything was in the town.
It was wild, for better or worse. But okay, so I find the site in the summer of 2004.
Okay.
I am playing the greatest baseball video game ever made, MVP Baseball, which was one of the first video games to feature editable minor league players. Because minor league players are not in the union. It's kind of wild to talk about now that there is a minor league players union.
Right.
But they're not in the union, but this game baked in, I think somehow, so they got the top 100 prospects with fake names. So there was like a very clear but fake named Hanley Ramirez and a very clear but fake named Brandon Moss. But the rest were just like completely random creative players with like first name that a major league has, last name that a major league player has, random stats, random position.
You're probably what, a junior at Brown at this time?
I am a June
21 years old,
rising junior. So this is the summer of 04. So yeah, and I graduated in 06. So I'm midway through. And late one night, I'm like, all right, well, you keep in mind, and I mentioned we both have the same brain. We're both very logical, ordered thinkers. Like,
right.
And I'm like, I want to make these players, I want to make the real Paw Sox and Portland Sea Dogs. And I start Googling around and I find the website. I find soxprospects.com and I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. Not only are these the players, there's scouting reports. I can do the leveling, right? On like what they throw, etc. To be clear, nowhere near the level of detail that we have now, but
sure.
They've got scouting reports, they've got stats. This is amazing. I'm like, I'm going to send an email to these people thanking them for the website. I don't know why I did this. And one thing that I've come to realize recently is part of why I did this is I had gone through a comic book phase and you had the letters page in comic books where you'd see like name and like where the person was from.
Yeah.
So when I sent this email, I sent Chris Hatfield, Salem, New Hampshire, because that's where I was from. Turns out Mike grew up like a mile and a half away from me,
Right.
which is kind of wild. And so we get talking, and Mike goes into salesman mode. And he's like, "You should join the message board. We're having, there's great discussion on there," which was an absolute lie. There was no discussion on the message board at that point. But I checked it out and it was cool. And I start posting a little bit, and I'm like, sure, because this is an era. This is pre-Twitter. You went to message boards to talk about stuff. At the time, I was thinking of becoming a sports journalist. And that's right around when you decided to add the news page. What made you want to add the news page? I guess because you've kind of got the website. It's got one way it's going, and there's a news page that,
Yeah.
I guess in some ways it lines up, but some ways it doesn't. What was the thinking?
I think I just wanted it to be a little bit more dynamic. So if you started emailing me in 2004 or 5, we started that in the spring of 2005 and hired a couple of guys, Don Hislop, Ryan O'Connell. I think it was a guy named Charlie Knights.
Dave Laurel wrote some stuff for the site.
Doing freelance writer. He's got a Hall of Fame vote now, right?
He's got a Hall of Fame vote. Like, I recognized his voice during the Sam Kennedy presser this week. Like, it's yeah. So he was contributing to, like, what was the unofficial program at that point? Boston Underground?
Don't remember.
Because I think he was writing minor league stuff for that program, which that was one of the other few places that was doing.
Yeah.
He wrote a book much later, but at the time I was either Boston baseball or something. It was the unofficial program you got outside of.
Right. Yeah. He happened to live, like, I was living in Porter Square in Somerville at the time, and he happened to live in Cambridge, and I met up with him a couple of times. We went to a game or two, and so he was a big early contributor. And then you started emailing him, like, okay, now we got like some people that know baseball. And correct me if I'm wrong, you had already interned at the Tribune, or that was post that?
I think it was the next summer. No, okay. It was the summer of 2005. Yeah, the summer you started the news page. Not the summer I reached out to you, but the next summer I started interning at the Eagle Tribune in North Andover. The Eagle Tribune covered the Spinners because they were local. And I was like, look, I am involved with this website. I write for this news page on this website, Sox Prospects, that covers the farm system. Can I use, and keep in mind at this point, we can't get a press pass. Like, get the hell out of here. If I use I'll obviously write something for the paper, but I would love to go down to Worcester or go to Lowell. Because Lowell, we would usually write with, like,
definitely not Worcester.
Yeah, no, Lowell, we would get faxed the box score, and I would write up the box score if I was on the desk that night.
Yeah.
Like, this was, I mean, the internet existed, so I guess I could get the box score online at that point. But so I guess for the Spinners, I could write it off the online box score. But, like, I'm like, can I go talk to people? Like, I would love to go talk to these guys. I remember the first professional baseball player I interviewed was RJ Swindle, who wound up making the majors. He was like a college draft pick bulk guy who pitched after, like, Tommy Hotovy or Andrew Dobbies, who would start the game. And I remember, like, the first big feature I wrote for the Tribune was going out to interview Clay Meredith in Worcester. And I took like 90 minutes of the dude's time back before I realized that wasn't something you did. But he was gracious as hell about it. And so that kind of, I'm just like, all right, well, if I'm going to write, like, I want to get clips, and this is what I want to write about. I wanted to be Peter Gammons, Gordon Eads, that guy covering the Red Sox for probably the Globe. And then if I went on to ESPN, great, because that's really what the career path was at that point. So that's kind of how I got involved, was writing.
Yeah. So
at that point I was moderating the message board too.
Right. You're going to Pawtucket for quite a while and writing features. And it takes us way, way too long to come up with the name of what this feature should be called when you're going to Pawtucket. You remember this?
Vaguely, because you always bring it up, but I never remember exactly.
So it was probably a year after that, and you're going to Pawtucket all the time and doing great interviews. And I was like, why aren't we calling this Hatfield at McCoy?
That's right.
Head smack. Yeah, that's a great name. So
it took way too long to figure that out. That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. R.I.P. McCoy Stadium. But yeah, so that's kind of how we start with building the news page. We had the cup of coffee every day. Shout out Don Hislop, who wrote that every day, and I say this in a good way. It was like a robot who just got on and wrote it. Like, and I don't mean like, I'm not talking about the content. I'm saying it was just automatic. Like, he was doing yeoman's work every night. Like,
out of Nova Scotia.
Yes.
for
Yes.
he might even have been in the Atlantic time zone. I don't know, but he would
We
have
were
it
in
up
an
early in the
international
morning.
operation.
He would have it up early in the morning
Yeah.
for 4 or 5 years, and he would do it every. Now we have it set up so we have 3 writers that are kind of take
Oh, there's
turns.
more than that. I think we
Uh,
have 5 different guys who do it at this point.
okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, and he just did it every day for 4 or 5 years.
It was wild.
Yeah,
Absolutely wild. All right. So we're building up the news page, and at this point, is it still a fan project for you?
yeah, probably
Yeah.
still for the next year or 2. Well, I think we'll get into when it started being more than that.
Well, that's where I was going to go next. So if there's
Yeah.
anything that comes before that,
I just think the few things before we get to that point are just like just starting to build up the staff with just like good people.
Yep.
In 2006, we hired Jonathan Singer, who was with us for over 10 years.
He was the
Total
fixer.
character. He just like got stuff done. He was
Yeah.
bold as hell. Good
That's one way
guy.
to put it.
And
Love Singer.
guys like Ian Theodoridis,
Yep.
and Ian went on to work for the MLB Network.
I think he still does.
Does he still work for the
I think
MLB?
so. Yeah.
I think he went to Franklin Pierce Law School, maybe.
He did. He went to Franklin Pierce Law School. I think he's at MLB Network now, and I'm pretty sure he named his first kid Xander.
Awesome.
Like, dude,
Not
that's sick.
Tiger Death House. That's the inside joke. We don't have to get into that one.
We're not going to explain that one.
Right.
Hit me up on Twitter if you want me to explain
behind
Tiger
the
Death
podcast
House.
too. Starting the podcast.
Well, yeah, it was because I remember he was heavily involved because his handle on the forum was Temple U Sucks because he went to
Right.
Temple for undergrad. If you look at our website's like URL for the podcast, I think Temple U Sucks is still in there because it was his account.
Right.
So how did that kind of? Well, I mean, if this isn't where it comes in timeline wise, but go ahead. I cut you off.
Yeah. So I mean,
We're
just trying to think in the 2007 to 2009 period. We start going to futures at Fenway every year, which was a minor league doubleheader. That was where we had to have our annual meetup, and that was awesome. So we get to meet each other in person for once a year, every year. That was a blast.
The itinerary was always baseball tavern before the first game.
Right.
They would open for us.
Yep.
Who's on first in between?
Absolutely.
And then the after the second game changed. Like I think we went to Cask and Flag in one year. We went to Yard House one year.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I remember I took the commuter rail up from Providence to do this.
Yeah.
And walked through like Copley.
Yep. Those were the days.
I miss futures so much. Anyway, all right.
So there's that.
Yep.
Then I think we're going to probably get into this when we talk to Chris Mellon. Is just starting to go to spring training, minor league spring training in 2007, which I feel like when I talk to fans and I'm like, or readers or friends, I'm like, we're going down to spring training. We go every year. They're like, how's the team look this year? And I'm like, well, we don't go to see the Red Sox. We go to the backfields to see the minor leaguers, and it's amazing. You go there. There's like you're 10 feet away from Carl Yastrzemski, who's like watching the game, or like Louis Tiant or Marcelo Meyer or whoever. It's just the best time, and we started going there in 2007. We haven't missed a year since, besides COVID. But we'll get into it. Well, we're sleeping on the floor most of the time because we don't have any money
at that point.
People to a room. Why don't you get into the origins of the sushi dinner?
Okay, well, so here's the thing: is that I wasn't on at least the first trip.
Oh no, right. First trip.
I wasn't on the first couple of trips. I think because it was you.
I think the first trip was just me.
Shout out Keith Carl.
Yeah,
love Keith. Hi Keith.
But maybe in 2009 is the first year that I think that you were on the first staff trip.
Was I? Okay, so the sushi dinner was at the time Blue Sushi,
right?
At the Gulf Coast Town. Was the Gulf Coast Town Center the first one we went to?
No, it was the one that we've been going to the last few years. I think the one out by the.
It was at the OG one,
right? Yeah.
Okay. So basically, like our were we incorporated at that point?
No.
Okay. So it's not technically our annual meeting yet. But we would go, and it was just kind of our blowout, like, we're gonna go to one nice dinner.
Right.
Um at Blue Sushi, which if you go to Fort Myers, highly recommend. I still love that place. Um and did we do the sushi draft immediately? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. So it was, by seniority. And
We
I
would
think at
order
that,
like 8 sushi rolls and like, right?
oh, at least.
Yeah.
Dude, I ordered 4 last night for myself. I've one of my superpowers is that sushi does not fill me.
Right.
Although as I get older, that's going away, unfortunately. Apparently age is my kryptonite. But we would do a sushi draft. We'd order a bunch of rolls. And to start, we would have the draft where like you would go first because you started the dang site and went on the most trips and etc. And we would go around and we would snake draft like fantasy draft style, like which piece of which roll you wanted to grab. Um, one of the things I love about this is like one of the first trips Ian went on, and I'm not saying this to talk smack about him, because I think this is adorable. He would put like a piece of ginger on the sushi bite. I'm like,
I
what
remember
the
this.
hell are you doing? And he admitted later he just wasn't a big sushi guy. But at any rate, we would just go and have this big blowout of like, go and have sushi. And did it start because players were there or no? It started because we heard it was good.
Very, very fuzzy memory. I don't know.
Yeah, but like eventually, like Blue Sushi was the place we'd go, and we'd see like the front office and an
Right.
agent with 2 of his players, and
Yeah.
like there'd be a couple Twins guys there too. But like it'd be like, oh, there's who's the? I mean, we
Buck Holtz is there with his wife from that game show.
Deal or No Deal.
Right.
Got you. Um, yeah, I mean, like we'd see people. It was just wild. But we would go and it would be our blowout and have this table full of sushi. I have the photo from every year that I've been. I think
Right.
of the table full of sushi. That's what got me to like sushi in part, actually.
It
Believe
was
it
like
was
quarter of our 25% of our budget for the year was spent on this sushi dinner.
well, we
And it was
had no
about like
budget.
it was like $400.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that was part of the highlights. But yeah, we're going, and you got to remember at the time, this is pre JetBlue Park. Like
Right.
the minor league complex is at a separate location from City of Palms. I had been to City of Palms in college on a spring break trip, but I had never been. The minor league complex was in a bad part of town, not a great part of town.
Yeah.
In the sense that, like, more in the sense that, like, there's nothing happening over there than that,
Yeah.
like, it was awful. But, like, it was its own thing, just like this dingy, like, barn-looking complex with a bunch of fields. Right? I mean, is that a
Yeah.
fair description?
Absolutely. I remember that there was a road, there was like a somewhat of a dirt rocky
Yes.
road
Dirt road,
down the
100%.
end, and it was lined with like rusted out car wheels, like 100 on each side. Um,
I don't remember that part.
like you could
Wow.
hear like dueling banjos going as you back through it.
Ned Beatty running away. Yeah, it was wild. But it was fun, man. I mean, and at that point we definitely weren't seeing the major league team because they were literally
Right.
in a different part of town.
Yeah. Right.
And you're right. To this day, I still have to be like, yeah, I didn't go to any games. We were just on the backfields, and I have to explain what that means. So that was I think that was a big part of growing the site, though, at least internally.
Yeah. So
To
that
me.
the first site trip was 2009, and I think that was the year where everything like went from this is a hobby to like holy crap, this is real. Like this is like 10 15 million page views a year.
Mhm.
And we can get into that, but like just another kind of wave of items happened that it just like wow, this is not what we planned for or expected. It was just kind of cool.
Yeah, and keep in mind, so at this point there is Twitter, because Twitter starts in 06. It's obviously a much smaller thing, but like, one of my first memories of being down there, the first time I realized people were paying attention is like, we actually broke Jeremy Papelbon getting released. Right. And because it was like we would be down there while guys got released from the minor league complex, but it was no one anyone cared about. Right. It was the like 25th rounder, 4th year senior from a NESCAC school.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but the year that I remember getting like the first time I remember being cited by quote unquote mainstream beat writers was when we were there when Jeremy Papelbon got released because he was Jonathan Papelbon's younger brother.
Right.
lefty. He was the submariner, right?
Yep,
Because
yep.
it was Josh and Jeremy. Oh no, was Josh the one that they had?
Yes, Josh was the one they had. He was a submariner. You're right.
Jeremy was the Cubs guy. Sorry. So it was Jeremy was the lefty regular arm slot
Right.
Cubs guy.
Mhm.
Josh was the one that we broke that they released. He was the submariner right-hander.
Yeah, he got
And
real low, like scraped his knuckles on the mound almost.
like Chad Bradford level.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, when that was a thing. No one does that anymore, by the way. That's weird. Yeah, okay. He got released in, I guess that would have been 2010, because it says he was assigned to the Salem Red Sox in September of 09. So I guess that would have been the spring of 2010.
Mhm.
So that's when we're starting to pick up a little bit. We're down there, we're seeing beat writers who like know us
Yeah.
or have heard of the site, which was crazy.
Yeah, that was kind of when that was the peak for me. Is so at one point in mid 2009, I wake up, go on my laptop, and I have an email waiting from Peter Gammons that's just like, your site is amazing. This is how I started back in the day. I think that you guys are really onto something. I'm so impressed. Keep doing what you're doing. Just keep balling. Or he always didn't say it that way, but like that's what the gist he was saying. I was like, oh my God, like freaking Peter Gammons. And then probably 3 weeks later, I get contacted by Gordon Eads, who, for those of you who don't know, I think most of people of our readers know Gordon Eads, but he
I
was
was
a
gonna say,
yeah,
I don't know, like, because there's probably a generation of people who think of Peter
right,
Gammons from his current Twitter
yeah,
personality, but Peter Gammons at the time is literally like the baseball writer guy.
right.
He's at ESPN at the time,
I think so. Yeah,
doing Baseball Tonight. The dean of baseball could have been the like if
right.
he was like, "Hey, MLB, I want to be the commissioner now," they probably would have been like, "Yeah, sure, here you go." Like,
He's like what Adrian Wojnarowski is to basketball, like to baseball. Like
yes,
he's the guy.
great comp, love it. Gordon Eads is the beat writer for the Globe at the time. The
He's like what
main
Alex Spear is now, kind of.
it was I'd say it's almost even more than that. It's almost like a combination of what Spear and Peter Abraham are right now,
Yeah,
almost, because they didn't have. I mean, I guess they had Cafardo, they had Dan Shaughnessy,
something
so
along
maybe I
those
guess it's
lines.
him and Cafardo at the time, probably, right?
Yeah.
Maybe,
So Gordon reaches out to
but
us,
anyway,
gives us props about how great the site is, and is like, that kind of just gives us the confidence to be like,
yes.
these people believe in us. Like maybe
Mhm.
we should stop like screwing around and like and treat this as something real. Um, and then like Gordon hooks us up with ESPN,
Mhm.
and we get a weekly column on ESPN Boston, where we just cover the minor leagues, and that
And we probably should explain that a little bit.
yeah,
Because at the time, ESPN, and keep in mind, part of the reason why I'm no longer pursuing the sports journalism thing is that it's still basically just newspapers. They have, and, ESPN.com is a thing, but they're trying to figure out how to use the internet still.
right.
Um, by this time, I've pivoted my career, which we probably do need to mention,
Let's
but
take a step back to that right after you make this point.
right. But ESPN launches, I think it's ESPN Boston, ESPN Chicago, ESPN Los Angeles. Was
Maybe
there a
Miami.
fourth?
Yeah,
Oh, New York,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
I think those were the four where they launched locally focused sections of ESPN.com, almost in an attempt to compete with like the Globe and like,
Yeah, yeah.
the New York Times or I don't know what the better New York sports section is, but at Newsday perhaps. And so we get hooked up, and for how many years did we write a weekly column?
Five-ish.
Monthly?
So 2009-ish to
Was it weekly
2014.
or monthly?
It was weekly during the season and monthly during the off season.
Which I cannot imagine right now. I think it's two.
Yeah, insane, right?
Yeah, I
My
mean,
favorite one
yeah,
was so in April 2010, I got to interview Daniel Nava,
yeah, you
amazing
did.
dude. I think most of you, our readers will know, but for those of you who don't, he was like an indie
Look them
ball
up.
signee, signed at a late age, um, and he looked like he had some like real momentum going into the majors. And a few
That
months
is
later, like he made his major league debut, and I'm sitting there with my dad watching the game, and Tim McCarver is just like talking about Nava, and it's like totally clear that he's like just paraphrasing my article. Like that's the
this is on
only
the Saturday afternoon Fox
right,
game. Yeah.
right. So he's doing this. I'm like, Dad, this guy's McCarver is just reading, like he's not like reading it word for word, but like there's nothing else out there on Nava. This is the
Mhm.
only thing on ESPN Boston. and he's just like using all that information for his to kind of talk about Nava's debut. It's a great story, and then Nava hits a grand slam on the first pitch he sees. And I just remember, great memory I have, just jumping around with my dad, like so excited to see that happen. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's sick. I remember that. I remember that distinctly. So let's do the double back actually. So like when I pivot
So let me ask
careers,
you. So
yes,
you joined the site,
yes.
the staffer. We didn't really. I don't know if we transitioned to that. Tell me about that for a minute.
When I joined the site,
So you go from joining the forum to
yeah,
joining
I become a
as
moderator.
staffer.
I become a moderator first
Okay.
because at that point the site was basically just a few pages in the message board,
Yeah.
like we said.
Yeah.
And the moderators at that point are Ian Theodoridis, myself, Aaron Schwam,
Yep.
Adam Fox.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of who else. I'm definitely forgetting people. I don't think John May is there at that point. No, he's definitely not.
Not yet.
Oh, probably Singer, probably you.
Yep.
You're probably more involved.
In the forum, yeah.
You start the news page, and I'm like, hey, I can help.
Right.
I do writing things. But I graduated from college. Don't get into the specifics, but I thought I had a gig lined up. It falls through. I wind up working in the athletic department at Brown for a couple of years. And I'm like, I've always thought about going to law school. You're a lawyer.
Right. I'm working at a law firm in Boston / Westwood, Massachusetts.
Yes. And I'm like, hey, person I know who's a lawyer, do you happen to know of any firms that need a paralegal? Because what I'm thinking is I'll go be a paralegal for a year before I drop a bunch of coin on law school. And by the way, if anybody out there is thinking of going to law school, wholeheartedly think this was the right way to do it.
Yeah.
I email you. Probably shouldn't get into the specifics, but you say at the time, actually, we might be shortly. I'll get back to you. I think, or something to that effect. And I remember why we should not get into it here, but in hindsight, I can imagine why you were saying this. A week or two later, you guys need a paralegal,
Yep.
right? So I wind up working with you basically full time, basically for 2 years is probably the simplest way to put it.
Yeah.
It's not quite that simple, but more or less.
Sure.
I am literally 2 doors down from you for 2 years, 5 days a week.
We're working at a law firm that has some big cases where we're working many hours a week, some week, like very, very busy some weeks. And then there's a lull where you're sometimes doing nothing for a few weeks.
Yes.
But there's weeks where we're going into the office and where we have no time to think about baseball. And then there's weeks where we're just doing baseball shit and I'm writing baseball and you're editing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Literally, I'd be like, walk down the hall. It was almost like being at an office for the newspaper of like, I'm walking down the hall, like, hey, I tweaked X, Y, and Z. Here's you want to talk about a red line? It was literally me using red pen on paper. At that point, probably tweaking stuff. I'm like doing background stuff on the website. I'm like tracking statistics. I don't think we even had a stats page at that point.
Right.
Like, I'm just doing different stuff. We're
Reynolds joined in 2008. Mike Reynolds, shout out to Mike Reynolds, who's an owner. Yeah. He built out the site web stats database in 2008, and it's
was it 08? Okay, so we had stats at that point. That makes sense, actually. Yeah, okay, because that wasn't a thing. Like MILB.com wasn't nearly as built out as it is now.
Right.
By the way, so
that's a digress. Go back to your story.
But yeah, so like you and I are basically working together for 2 years, which is probably like what winds up bringing me in more to the website.
Yeah.
Because this was just a thing I did on the side while I was trying to get clips to go work at a newspaper, and then like I'm not doing that anymore. But and I don't know what if there's anything else here that I should be hitting that I'm not, but it's like I'm kind of on a daily basis thinking about the website and doing stuff for the website. So
yeah,
that's how I get a little bit more involved. I eventually go off to law school.
When year did you start law school?
2010. And so this is relevant.
Yes,
and this is relevant because
in January 2010 is when I incorporate the business into Sox Prospects LLC. Yes. And I bring on you and Chris Mellon, who we'll talk to as co-owners, as part owners.
But it's like the summer / fall. And the reason I remember that, I think I've told you this. I was going to be done with Sox Prospects.
Sure.
100%. I'm like, I'm going to law school. Thanks for the memories. Like, I'll keep reading the site. And then I'm like, oh, Mike wants to make me a part owner. Crap, this is legit now.
Right.
And that's what kept me on, which is kind of wild to think about.
Yeah, I don't regret
13
that
years
one.
ago. It worked out okay. So yeah, like, so I'm like, all right, well, if he's gonna, if there's this level of commitment there to make this a bigger thing, then sure, why not? Like, and there was a discussion of like law school is going to come first, and there's going to be times where I
Yeah.
just peace out for
Uh-huh.
weeks at a time. But
Like we all done in waves.
you understood it, yeah, exactly, and
Yeah.
you understood. I knew you understood that because you were a
Right.
lawyer.
And I was in law school for the first 2 years of the site.
I guess that's true.
So
I guess good point.
I think the other thing around that time is like we start getting requests for like real media interviews.
Yeah,
I
is
think
that when that started? I guess that. Well,
right.
yeah, no, I distinctly remember.
For
That
me, it was
absolutely
October
was.
2009. I did about a 10-minute radio hit on the Sports Hub.
Yes,
And then
Toucher and
that,
Rich.
what's that?
It was Toucher and Rich,
Toucher and
right?
Rich, yep.
Yeah.
And it went kind of well, but it's not really my thing. I don't want to be the public facing guy.
You don't.
And then we started getting more and more requests, and like it's Chris Mellon, and it's eventually Ian are the faces of like all these media hits. I don't know. What do you say we've done? Like dozens is probably shortchanging it. It might be
Oh,
100.
more than that. I've done dozens. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just thinking, like, I can distinctly remember. It's probably not good. Going drinking on the corner in Charlottesville, and this was after. Was Renato 2009 draft?
Yeah.
Oh no, because I was
No,
in
no,
law school. I was in law school and I didn't start till 2011. But I can remember doing a radio hit. Oh no! I learned they drafted Renato walking back from the corner on my phone, seeing what had happened in the draft that night.
Didn't you do a radio hit with a station in Louisiana or something?
Wait, roll it back. I remember what it is now. It was 2010 because we were at trial during the draft.
Yes.
We had a trial. Because I remember being in the courtroom with you on my phone, seeing that the Red Sox had just drafted Brandon Workman in the second round.
I remember this distinctly.
So they had drafted Renato the night before. The signing deadline back then was much later.
Yeah.
And I did a radio hit on a station in Louisiana from my apartment in Charlottesville on a like Baton Rouge radio station because they love LSU baseball down there, which is something that like, I mean, I was at Dylan Cruz's debut in Fredericksburg and like people had traveled from LSU to see that, which is wild. But they were like, are the Red Sox
dozens? You've done dozens, hundreds.
I'm probably over 100 at this point, easily.
And like as bunch of like the obvious ones, but also stuff like Hawaii. Like, weren't you on a New Zealand radio station at one point?
Yeah, it was like it's either New Zealand or Australia, but it's one of the two that like had us on to talk MLB Red Sox because I don't know if they. At the time, we were still very heavily focused on the minor league system, and I would talk about it. But I can just remember having a call with my buddy who's a Yankees fan because they had me on to talk about the upcoming Red Sox Yankees series, and I had to be like, "Yo, catch me up on what's happening with the Yankees," because they want to talk to me about the Yankees too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we've done New Zealand. I've got a couple stations in Maine. I've done Baton Rouge. We've all done either the Sports Hub or WEI at this point.
Sure.
I'm trying to think of what else. Ken Kale up in New Hampshire has had Chris and then me on a bunch of times. Ian and I have both done Nesson at this point.
Yeah, sure.
So
Pretty
yeah,
cool. So at this phase, we're also hiring more people. I talked about Mike Reynolds, who built out the stats database and has became a part owner. We hired John Mioli and Matt Hegel.
We're building out the news page, which is how we got those two on. Yep.
Yeah. I think we're going to talk to John Mioli, so we won't get into that too much here.
Soonish, actually.
I really want to hear his version of the Xander Bogaerts story. So we'll talk to him in a little bit, but like Matt Hegel was a part owner for a long time.
Yep.
He was kind of a jack of all trades that did a lot of stuff for us. So shout out to Matt. Kind of cool. And then we hire Ian, who obviously doesn't need an introduction. Co-host of this podcast.
Yeah, if you're listening here, you probably know who Ian is, and we don't want to downplay it. He started as Mellon's
number 2 scout,
number 2 guy,
October 2010.
Which Mellon goes to BP. We should have probably gotten this timeline from
2013. Mellon goes.
Okay. We had the two of them for 3 years.
No, 2. So it's
Oh, it's like end of 10, beginning of
yeah,
13. Yeah, got it.
exactly.
That makes sense. Yeah, I can distinctly remember recording an episode of the podcast with Mellon and probably Hegel during my 2L summer where I forgot to hit record and I
Oh,
didn't realize
yes.
it till we'd finished.
Yeah, they were happy about that. I
They were
remember hearing
pissed.
that.
I would have been too.
So we
But
have
yeah,
like 2 like professional level like evaluators for a
crazy.
couple of years, which is like amazing. And like,
Yeah,
and Ian takes what Mellon built and just
takes the
kind of
football
takes
and
it to
runs
the
it,
next
man.
level. We're going to talk to him on this very podcast about his kind of Sox prospects origin story. But like, I, I, I just want to give the shout out here of how important that has become. Is like,
Mhm.
um, without Ian, nothing here runs.
No question. I think at this point, it's like, there's certain things that the site needs to run. He's one of them.
Yeah,
And probably maybe the most crucial, honestly. Like there are people who, if they left, the site would need to change and like
yeah,
the site would change completely without Ian. Yeah, it's wild what he's been able to do, getting to games, building the network. I mean, Mellon, and we'll talk to him in a bit. We've actually already recorded that part, the magic of podcasts. Either on this episode or maybe it'll be on the next one. Who knows? I'll figure out how to piece everything together. But Chris builds out our network of he's going to games, and we're going to talk to him about the details of that. But he's also talking to other scouts,
right.
and he just builds up that network. And that piece of it is what's crucial. Like what we do at the site, a lot of it is firsthand. And Chris talked a lot about the firsthand reports thing and how crucial that's been and how unique that was to what we were doing. That was not something, never mind team focused sites. Like y'all have to understand, like BA wasn't doing that.
Right.
Frankly, like to some degree. I mean, like Jim was going to games, Josh Manuel was going to games, JJ Cooper was going to games. Like they were going to games, but like they didn't see every single player in the prospect handbook. That was building a network and reporting on it. And that's why what they've done has changed a lot. And I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm saying like what we were doing, getting to games firsthand, it was very, very different. And it wasn't until talking with Chris about that it really jogged that from my memory of like how important that was to what we were doing. To have 2 guys doing that at the level that Chris and Ian do it at was enormous.
Right.
And it's really what had set us apart. And that's the thing is it's like, you got to go to games. Like you can't just base it on a slash line.
Right.
You can't just base it on even watching the games on MILB.TV. Like it's huge that that's a thing now. And that's like a decent part of what like you and I probably have to do at this point.
The cracks a little bit with that, but you can't build the basis without that.
Yeah, you really can't. It's different. It's really different. And getting the games and talking to people, building that network, meeting scouts, meeting people who do this for a living. It's huge.
We'll talk to Ian about that.
We will. Yes.
He'll be up.
Yeah, maybe we've kind of gotten a little bit off the timeline here, but I feel like that was a big piece of what kind of the metamorphosis starts to be complete into what the site's going to become.
Right.
Is that fair? You think?
Yeah, I think the basis of it is now right. Like we haven't added major features from here on out. It's more about the people and refining what we do rather than building out like new
adding
parts.
staff.
Right.
You know,
this is like 2010, 2011. James Dunn, who we're going to talk to, big writer on the site. He's part owner. He joins in late 2011. He's just like a really knowledgeable guy, super reliable, and becomes our managing editor, and joins ownership a couple of years after that. So like the basis is like there starting around this time period.
Right. Right. And it probably bears saying, and I know you want to do this. Maybe this is the spot to do it. I don't know. But we keep saying staff.
Right.
This doesn't become what it is without, I mean, the number of people who have been quote unquote staff, it's never been a paying job.
Right.
It's a labor of love, even for, I mean, heck, the ownership, quote unquote, wasn't getting paid for the longest time.
Right.
For most of the history of the site.
Sure.
The quote unquote payment, I mean, at least for me, it was the trip to Fort Myers. Honestly, that was payment enough for me. But the number of people who have been like, yeah, I'll write a recap of Friday night's games on Saturday
Sure.
morning. Sure.
Yeah.
What
Yeah, I
what are
mean,
we doing here?
it's always about
Awesome.
20 people,
It's
15 to
wild.
20 people always. And some people do a few hours a week, some people do more than that. And it's because they love it, and we wouldn't be able to be where we are without them. And I want to run a segment later on towards the end of where we thank all as many as we can individually, but like
Mhm.
it is so awesome. Like we can't do it without the whole staff. And there's writers, there's editors, there's web editors, there's graphic designers, the social media team, there's moderators, photographers. I mean, I want to mention Kelly O'Connor specifically, who is
Oh God.
um,
Can you
just
imagine?
um, probably 95% of the site's photos are hers. And she is just an 80 grade photographer, I would say.
Yeah, man.
Just and goes to tons of games and loves it. Um, God bless her. I don't
Can
know
you
what else.
imagine what the site would look like if Kelly O'Connor doesn't exist?
Oh, I think about that sometimes and cringe.
It would just be like
Here's a
GeoCities
picture from
era.
Mike's cell phone of Marcelo Meyer.
I mean,
That's what we have
yeah.
to do sometimes. Like before Kelly gets to a game and has a professional photo, I'll have one from my cell phone that looks like trash. It would
Can we
we would
talk about John here?
about the singer.
Can we? I
Yes,
think we can.
absolutely. Yeah.
Part of why John Singer was so crucial.
Yes.
We're nice guys, you and I.
Right. Yeah.
And not that John isn't. It's a little bit, it's something you need to get over when you start in this business, to go up to someone, first of all, just to talk to them.
Right.
And then we'll talk a little bit
Right.
about this too, like how like we knew some of the folks who work for the site that have gone on to bigger and better things were going to go up to a player who's like, the night we say the backfield is like you're standing 2 feet away from like
Right.
a guy in the system.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, we need your photo.
I still can't do it.
It's weird. It's a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
John had no problem.
He
He would
loved it.
go into the dugout and be like, hey,
Come out here.
random Venezuelan 18, 17-year-old, come here. We need to take your photo. And the guy would be like, sure. And Mike would be like, oh God, oh God. And you had your probably little like Canon, what are the DSLR or whatever it is,
Yeah. Yeah.
and take the photo. And like, it's funny, but that was so important early on in the site's history to have John
Yeah.
Singer willing to go do that.
Right. It really was.
It was so important to be like, okay, good, we've got a photo of Ramphis Baroa now. Like, it was crucial because like at that point it was like, yeah, I guess we could have like email, because the thing is there's no like media guy for the Gulf Coast League or Florida Complex League Red Sox. Like, that's not a thing.
Right.
When they got to the Spinners, there was media day, and we probably could have gotten a headshot from the Spinners, but like
Oh,
all
here's
the
the other
guys
part
in
of
the
it.
complex leagues, like we
Here's
don't
the other
have.
part of it. Sometimes he would be like, "Who are you?" Like, we need photos of all like the upcoming FCL player, or back then it was PCL, and he would do it for like 10 guys, and he'd be like, just for my notebook, who are you? And he would have no qualms about doing that.
No, and we laugh, but it was so important. Love Singer.
You want to mention the guys? So, like, want to talk about Tim Healy for a second, who worked for us in 2013 and 14?
Yeah, I mean, there have been so like we've got a number of folks who worked for us who went on to bigger and better things. Tim Healy's one. Tim wrote for Sox Prospect while I was a student at BU. He went on to cover the Miami Marlins at the Sun Sentinel, which was
Yeah.
the Miami Sun Sentinel. It's apparently now the South Florida Sun Sentinel, and now he covers the Mets for Newsday.
Right.
It
It was evident from when he started working for us, like, this kid is like,
we're not going to have him for long. We
he's gonna
knew.
go pro.
I think he only wound up writing for us for like a year, and it was like
a year and a half, something like that.
yeah. Yeah, Healy was great. Loved Tim Healy. Even just for the Twitter thread about his roommate is epic. He's got this epic Twitter thread that he had a roommate who's from, I forget what country. It's like Belarus or Ukraine or something. It's amazing. The
Morrison.
Kate Morrison we had for a hot minute. She had interned with Alex at WEI.com.
Probably.
Was it pre-Globe? I think it was pre-Globe. That was another one where it's like, we've always tried to get, we've all been big proponents of getting women on the staff.
Right.
Whenever there's an opportunity, we try to. It was clear Kate wasn't going to be with us for long, and she wasn't, just because she was clearly set for
You read
bigger
her
and better
article,
things.
you're like, this person should not be working for free. Like this,
Yes.
going to be getting paid for this very soon.
Yeah, and so she has covered the Worcester Red Sox recently. She's more focused on the photo thing now, but like,
she was just very good.
She's awesome. The other big one was John Mioli, who we're going to talk to
Right.
in 25 minutes, by the way. But yeah, Mioli was with the site for much longer, was on ownership for a period of time, right?
Yeah.
I still pound the table to this day. He could be the next Jeff Passan if he wanted to.
Right.
No question in my mind. The way he's able to build rapport with players, which I'm sure we'll talk about with him. Great writer. At one point, I remember having a long heart-to-heart with him while I was up in Salem, actually walking around the mall on my cell phone because I was in the middle of grabbing something over at the mall. But like, he got hired before, like, he worked for the Baltimore Sun covering the Orioles. He like worked for one of their like satellite papers.
Yeah.
And he was just like, look, I'm doing this at my day job, and then I'm doing this for you. And I'm like, well, then go do this for your day job, man. Like,
right.
I want to keep you on the site, but you're clearly destined for bigger stuff.
Right.
Like, go.
I had the same conversation with him too. I remember specifically where I was. We're in the pool at spring training in Fort Myers, and he's like, just like afraid to tell me that he's like, probably has to move on. But it was like evident that, like,
yeah, no kidding,
this is your career. Like, you got to do it, man.
Yeah, I mean, I still think like the baseball world doesn't understand what they have in John Mioli. I love that he was able to build something up and sell it, and he's still killing it. Still coaching women's college hockey, which I think is sick. Awesome. I love it so much. I still remember he was another one we found on the message board originally, right?
I think so, yeah.
Because
I just want to give props to the. So we did add 5 owners beyond
the Class A owners,
right, yeah. So they
not as in like a ball, like
right.
A is in a first letter of the alphabet.
Back in 2014, we brought on more people as owners. It was James. It was Mike Reynolds, who I talked to.
Yep.
But I also want to give a big shout out to Jim Crowell, Matt Picard, and Will Woodward, who Jim and Will still have been with us. I don't know, those guys have been here like 15 years working on the news page. Yep. And Matt Picard was with us doing editing and web editing and building out the main site for a long time, and was like a crucial member when I didn't have the time because of my job at the time to focus as much as I would like to on the main site, and he was able to kind of take over for a few years and really just kind of run the back end of stuff.
Yeah, I still remember he made like a how to edit the website like guide.
Right.
That was huge. That like still basically guides what we do to this day, pretty much. I have it in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that was huge too. Yeah, I mean, the group of guys we've had who have just been like, yeah, I'd love to spend some downtime, like being an ultra reliable volunteer at a website.
Yeah,
it's sick. And hopefully they get something out of it. I mean, I really hope that if there's more we can do, guys, if you're listening, like, let us know. You've got us over a barrel a little bit. Seriously. Yeah, it's a great crew that we've had the pleasure of working with. And like the folks that go on to do, but I mean, that's really one of the things that I've loved. Like, I remember John Mioli saying once, like, yeah, you were my first editor to me.
Right.
I cried. I legit cried. John, if you're I cried. Like, I was just like, holy crap. Like, to make an impression on someone like that has been wild to me. I remember I brought my mom to a game up at Camden because I live in DC now, for those who don't know. And like, they had a rain delay and he came out of the booth to just shoot the breeze. And I think that's when he said that. And I was just like, holy crap. Like, the guy that's in there, I still have the photo on my phone because he did the pregame, and it was apparently the first time he'd done the pregame show.
Yeah.
And like, I was just like, that's my boy. Like, it was like,
I have a picture of him and I. We got into this might've been my first time in a press room. I don't think it was. It definitely was at Fenway.
Preachers at Fenway was your first time in a press room.
Fenway was my first time. in a
With him.
Boston press box, and him and I, and it's his first time in the press box, I think, many years ago. But we got to sit in the press box in Fenway together, and I have pictures of it, and it's such a good memory. I just remember sitting there being like, how did like this like website that was made for fun as a side project turn into something where I'm sitting in the press box at Fenway, and like on an invitation basis. It doesn't make sense.
You want to know something wild?
What's that?
I've still never been in the press box of Fenway.
Really? Even as like a tour?
When would I have gone? I've lived in the Mid-Atlantic since basically since 2010.
Yeah. Huh.
I'm sure I could get up there if I wanted to.
If you wanted to, we could make it happen anytime.
I'm sure we could. Yeah. I mean, I have no qualms about that. We've interviewed the former chief baseball officer. So yeah, anyway. But yeah, okay, we kind of got off track a little bit, but on a good off track.
So I mean, I'm thinking that there's like, we're around 2014, 15 now, and like not a lot has happened since then. It's been just refining everything we do kind of like we talked about. We did a redesign in 2021. We started using the 2080 scale in 2016.
Should we talk about rankings a little bit?
I think we're going to do that with Ian. I would like to do that with him.
Okay, we can do that.
How the
Hopefully
rankings
he texts me back and says when he's available today.
Or do you want to talk about? No, let's do that with Ian.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Because he's a little bit of a driving force behind the changes we've made, you and him. Let's get into that on that segment. I thought it was cool when you guys were on the Nesson broadcast last March. That was kind of
it felt so bad. I mean, do we want to talk about how that came about?
Yeah, sure.
Is that a good enough story? I don't know. I mean, it was literally just like we were at dinner on Saturday night.
Right. In Fort Myers. We see
Tom Karen, TC, who this got asked on Twitter to me, or not to me, but I saw it recently. I think someone asked Ed this, Ed Hand, our social media stud. Ed's awesome. Another person who we need to thank profusely. Someone asked him, like, is Tom Karen as cool as he seems on TV? The answer is no. He's more awesome.
Cool dude.
I love TC. We just see him at, I don't know what restaurant. It was the Mexican place.
I don't remember the name of it. I wouldn't be able to nail it down.
It's a Mexican place in the Gulf Coast Town Center. He's there. He's there with his wife. I think Steve De Silva is there, the camera guy. With him, I think, right? Loves Steve's also good egg. And he's like, "Are you all going to the game tomorrow?" The funny thing is, when he's at the time he's asking this, we're kind of like, "You're leaving in the morning."
Right.
Me, Ian, and James are like, "Yeah, we might go." And I'm like, "Yes, we're going. Of course we are. Of course we're going. Yes.
Why wouldn't we?
Why wouldn't we go?" And then keep in mind, on Sundays, minor league camp isn't going sometimes. And that Sunday, nothing was happening in minor league camp. We were already thinking about it. The Red Sox were at the Twins. So like, sure, we'll go across town. Why not? And he's like, "Well, why don't you let's talk. We can have you on the broadcast. It'll be great." I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Great." And we go home. We're like, not panicking. We're like, "Oh my God, where are we going to, we're going to be on Nesson." And like at this point, Ian had done Nesson.com a fair amount. Shout out to the folks over at Nesson.com who've been smart enough to get Ian on there a bunch to do like stand-up video and as well as just voiceover stuff.
Right, and you too. I mean, I was with my.
I hadn't done Nesson at that point.
Right, but I'll just aside for a second. I'm sitting in my living room with my kids 2 weeks ago, and Chris Hatfield pops up on my big screen 65-inch TV, and it says Sox prospects, and my son Aaron, who is 13, is like, "Dad, who's that?" It's from Sox.
He doesn't remember me. He's probably met me 3 times.
Yeah. So actually, he's listened to the podcast with me. When we drive to Worcester, we listen to the podcast, and he really likes it.
All right.
So that was just super cool. So sorry for interrupting.
No, I mean, I've literally had like the former like assistant principal of Woodbury Middle School reach out to me once and be like, she didn't quite get it. She's like, "I didn't realize you worked for the Red Sox." So I kind of had to explain to her, like, that's not how it works. But yeah, but that's how that relationship got built too, where it's just like, I mean, if we're going to try and give lessons out of this, like, don't be afraid to talk to people.
Yeah. Right, just going over to him.
Like, that's
There was a
networking, man.
debate of whether we should even go over and bother him at dinner, but we did, and it was, I think you
Well,
guys
to be fair, and this is very TC, they weren't quite having dinner. They
right,
were
they were
in a
having
they were over at the bar.
yeah.
Um, so it was just like, yeah, dude, they're just having drinks. Like, yes, we should go say hi.
Yeah, but I just thought that kind of took it to the next level. It was like, okay, you guys have been on pre-recorded stuff, you've been on radio live, but
Mhm.
like being on Nesson live during like a real broadcast, that was kind of a big
That was
deal.
a step. Yeah,
Yeah.
and shout out to Red Sox Stats for like getting the video of that because I think my mom might have posted it to Facebook or something. I don't know. Yeah, I mean that was cool, and that's built into a relationship, and that's been fun to pursue and grow. And I mean, I don't know, kind of one of the big like kind of hey, look, ma, I made it type moments for me was like this
Yeah.
year. I was going to go back on the broadcast, went in the booth with Mike Monaco and Uke, which was
Right.
wild full circle moment to
Yeah.
have the first number one prospect in the system as a
Yeah.
color guy. First time I went in the booth during a major league broadcast. But and Mike Monaco, who's a stud, you all know that.
Right.
If you're listening to this. But like being in the press, so I went up to the press box early to try and like, I don't want to be running in at the last minute for a
Yeah.
TV spot.
Oh,
And I
right.
take a spot in the press box, like a couple seats between. It's almost
Like the green room kind of, right?
no. I went in the regular press box
Okay.
first. And it's kind of the equivalent, gentleman out there listening of like, you're not going to the urinal next to someone, right? You're
Yeah.
kind of going in between. There's space here. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm 3 seats down from Jet McCaffrey, 3 seats down from Alex Spear. I know I'm both great people. So I'm like, let me take the spot. And there's someone's stuff there, but I'm like, they're not here. So like, whatever. A couple innings later, the person whose stuff it is sits down and it's Peter effing Gammons.
Wow.
Goosebumps
Yeah.
moment. And I shot the shit with Peter Gammons for 4 innings of a spring training game.
Wow.
I said I had to go do the Nesson spot an inning early
Yeah.
because I had to go to like an open like booth in the press box to just like come down for a minute because I was like, oh my god, Peter Gammons, and it was, I mean, it was good to know that he knew who we were
Right.
from him having reached out. When did you say it was 2010?
2010, 2011, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, like I knew he knew who we were, so I wasn't like, and it's been part of my growth as a person too. I mean, the site, like I can remember, and not that he's going to hear this, like I sat next to Gordon Eads at a Celtics playoff game. Have I told you this?
I think so.
Literally next to Gordon Eads. It was the point in time when he was working at Yahoo Sports,
Uh-huh.
Yahoo.com Sports. And I was too chicken shit to say, like, hey, Gordon, like, we have
Yeah.
a website. Like, you've been really instrumental in helping us. He had helped us at that point. Like, he had
Right.
reached out. He knew who we were.
Yeah.
And like I had a really cool moment where it was this Orlando Magic game. It was in May of I could pull the date if I wanted to, but like he knew who we were at that point. And it was like Ray Allen went off and they made this like 17-point comeback in the fourth quarter. Everyone's high-fiving. And I pointed out that I knew who he was. I'm like, it's cool when you get to do this down here with us and not be in the press box, right? And he's like, yeah, Tony Maz and I aren't high-fiving when Poppy goes deep. Which I was just like, Gordon Eads made a joke. But now, like, to be able to like, yo, Peter Gammons, hi, I'm Chris Hatfield from Sox Prospects. Like, that's been an area of personal growth, which like has been huge in my career because like I've been an attorney for 10ish years, and if you know, like to become a law firm partner, like you need to be able to do that, and like
Yeah. So
it's
let's talk
a
about that for a
directly
second.
relatable skill.
That's a good segue. There's two more things I want to talk about.
Okay.
I think that I want to talk about one spring training story, and I want to just talk about. I've been listening to the podcast obviously for a long time, and I feel like some of the readers might really they think that they know that you're a lawyer, but like share what you can share about like what you do and who you are and like how you grew up coming through the site. Just a couple minutes on that.
Sure. So, well, yeah. So we've talked a little bit about the sports journal thing.
Yep.
That didn't happen. Was a paralegal at your firm. Went to UVA Law.
Which is like a top 10 law school in the country ish.
I sure think so. U.S. News may or may not agree, but they should. But one of the best. Yeah, it's a good school. I work as an attorney now during the day. That's my Clark Kent role. associated law firm now here in DC. I'll say I'm at Ballard Spahr in
Yeah,
DC. I do white collar work and I'm a litigator. In part, went down that path from working at the firm you were at,
right.
which is now BLA Schwartz in Mass. We can say,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
sure.
in Massachusetts. Um, and I'll say, right, you opened this, you opened yourself up to this. I had the immense benefit of being a paralegal for 2 years at a firm that it was small but did really really good work.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
It was a spin-off of a big law firm, but it was a small law firm.
yes, yeah, yeah. Shout out to Erwin. Might as well
Right.
say it. Not that he's gonna listen, but um, yeah, and like being a paralegal for you for a couple of years was huge because like I always say this, like 1L, 1L year, first year of law school, like I'm taking legal writing class and I had already like
Right,
proofread and edited winning appellate briefs
right.
that you had written, and
Yeah,
you're a damn good writer. I always say this: you're a really good legal writer. It's too bad you're not into litigating, which is smart, frankly. But
I was for 6 years, but
yeah, I mean, you were damn good at it. I would have loved to have seen you first chair at trial because I'm sure you would have crushed it. I don't know. Did you ever first chair something? I know I've seen you taking depositions.
I've never first chaired a trial. I second chaired, and then I kind of led some um, parts of trials, but never led the
You've done
entire.
like questioning of
And
witnesses. Yeah.
maybe arbitration I led.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm in no small part the lawyer I am right now because I had that head start from you. Like, and
Yeah,
I mean, I refer to you a fair amount as like the older brother I never had. I'm an only
sure.
child.
Yeah, it feels like that.
In part because we just have stupidly the same brain. It's
It's
weird.
very weird.
It's very strange.
Yeah,
Um,
Ian loves it.
no, he doesn't.
No, he does not love it. Picture just working with two lawyers that like nitpick every word of
Yes.
everything that are like
Oh, God bless
annoyingly
his heart.
detail oriented. And Ian's just like, yeah, screw you guys.
Yeah, bless his heart. We kid. But yeah, so now like during the day, I'm an attorney at am law top 100 law firm.
And you live in DC,
Live in
downtown DC.
DC,
Yeah,
get to games down here when I can. Obviously, I'm lucky enough that I mean, it used to be more back when Salem came to Frederick all the time. It was great, but Frederick doesn't have an affiliate anymore. Went to Hagerstown while they had an affiliate, unfortunately. And now I go to Bowie whenever they're hosting the Portland Sea Dogs. I go to Fredericksburg whenever they're hosting the Salem Red Sox. I haven't gotten down to Richmond yet, as I mentioned in a recent show. I'd love to, but it's like 2 hours away. It's a bit of a hike. And just getting out there for me down here is a little different proposition than getting to Portland from Massachusetts. Just the traffic proposition is very different.
yeah, sure.
Um, but yeah, so like the website is something that I'm able to do, evenings and weekends,
Right,
essentially. And that's not to say we don't do, it's kind of funny. I've realized the distinction is one in that it's not that we do it full time, but it's no less professional,
right,
is the way I think I would describe it. We take it extremely seriously. We want to do it the right way. And I think that's why we've been able to build it the way we have.
right.
It's not about being takey. It's not about,
That's key to me.
maybe to our detriment, it's not about selling ads,
Right.
frankly. We've it's not something we've made money on. I'm sure as a value proposition, it's been a value proposition loser for us. Taking out what's the word I'm looking for? The kind of what's the Derek Jeter crap?
Yeah,
Benefits. Intangible benefits over the moon profit, but like it's not like it's been a monetary winner for us.
right. Yeah, and when you say we're getting paid, it's like a few $100 here or there. It's not like
It's not a
we're
lot.
getting paid like salaries.
No, it's nothing. Trust me.
Yeah,
And that's why like when the podcast goes away for a couple weeks, it's probably because I'm too slammed at work. Right.
yeah,
I'm being
right,
frank
absolutely.
here.
Yeah,
Right. Like it is what it is. But yeah. So that's kind of my role at the site has changed a lot. It used to be something where I was writing a lot. I don't write anymore. I would love to have the opportunity to write more. It's just not in the cards. Um, Now my role is basically the podcast. I've stepped away from even editing the news page. I basically edit scouting reports and I edit if Ian has something that's going up, I'll edit his stuff on the news page. But it's scouting reports, it's the podcast, it's back end stuff that you don't do because you're the main back end guy on the site. And just kind of helping to run the show, kind of top level type decisions, I guess is it. I don't know if
sure.
I'm missing something
I
you
think
wanted
that's
on there,
accurate.
but yeah.
Yeah.
And so there were two things. What was the other thing? Yeah, and then for you, kind of what at your point, like, so again, you're an attorney, as
Yeah.
we've mentioned. What's your
Yeah, so
I guess with the
right,
evolution since where we left off and what you do now.
right. Yeah, like I said, back in the day, I was doing a lot more going to games and stuff, but then I got a law firm job that made it tough. I worked at that law firm you mentioned, BLA Schwartz, for 6 years, and then after that, I went on to work at the Boston Beer Company as in-house counsel there. So I'm associate general counsel there. That, for those who don't know, that is the brewer of Sam Adams, Dogfish Head, Truly, Twisted Tea, Angry Orchard, and a few other small brands. And so
R.I.P.
that's my
Curious
full-time
Trail.
gig. I've been doing that since 2011, just about to hit my 12th year anniversary. I love working there, but it also doesn't really allow me to, I don't really love being the face of, like, I don't put myself out there a lot. I just do stuff on the back end. And after I had my kids, it made it even a little bit harder to go get to games because I'm always following their games and stuff. Um, but for now, I'm mostly doing for the site. I'm doing the back end stuff. So like the stuff you come maybe don't see, but it's just like updating the transactions, updating the org page, updating all the list pages and player pages. Um, Weird little stuff that has to get updated, like birthdays and ETAs, and the rankings get updated each month. And then running the business and trying to manage the staff when we're hiring and doing our staffing cycles every year. I think that those are the big items.
That sounds right. And I'm just trying to think in terms of, I mean, you are actually going to more games now. You've kind of
Right. There was a couple years where I didn't.
come
And
over the other side where you can
yeah,
bring your
right.
son now.
My son is 13, so we've gone to I think 5 Woo Sox games this year. Um, and we did spend some time in Maine, but Portland didn't happen to be home during that
Mhm.
wave. So I've gotten that's really I've gotten to this year. I've gotten to 5 Woo Sox games, but I've also gotten to a handful of Red Sox games. Um, where I think I just last year I got to see Bayo's debut. I got to see Rafaela's debut this year. So I've gotten some good prospect centric Red Sox games. And I did want to mention one other thing is that my favorite kind of accomplishment from my current job at Boston Beer Company is I got to negotiate the deal between Sam Adams, Truly, and Twisted Tea, and the Red Sox that got the big sign up there in right field.
Do you think of that every time you see the sign out there?
Very much. It actually makes me quite emotional when I see it. Um,
That's
it's
sick.
like it's something that is important to me, and I loved doing that, and bringing those two worlds together was pretty cool. And we were in the we have what do you call it, a suite there, and I was there in May and got to bump it. Like Sam Kennedy popped in, and he was like, I introduced myself just like you said, like maybe a few years ago I wouldn't have, but I was like, yeah, I'm the founder of Sox Prospects, and he just like lit up and wanted to talk about Meyer and
Mhm.
York, and he's like, what do you think of Shane Drohan, that type of stuff, and
Mhm.
that was kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's cool. And we've been treated with a lot of respect within and without the organization, especially more recently. And it hasn't always been that way, if we're
Yeah,
being frank.
yeah,
I can still remember Chris didn't talk about it. We didn't get to talk about it with Chris, but I can remember, someone stepping in front of him with a radar gun at one
yeah,
point.
yeah.
Um, and that wasn't because it was us, to be very, very clear.
Right,
It wasn't anything specific, but it's just like to be able to build that cachet where we are trusted
right,
among folks, where like they'll tell us stuff that like, hey, just so you know, type thing.
right. Don't
Just to
share this
make sure.
publicly, but yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's been huge to do that. Um
So the last thing I wanted to talk about was the Bubba Bell story.
St. Pat's.
Yeah, St.
Yeah.
Patrick's Day. I think we tried to figure out that it
You
was
start because I
2011.
come in the middle.
Yeah, come in and like stop me if I feel like this. I don't know what has been embellished and what hasn't because it's been 12 years or not. But
Sure. So
if
this is March of 20. Did we decide 11?
I think 11
Okay.
St. Patrick's Day.
Is it? Because I
Um,
don't remember going down to, I guess I went during law school 1L year. Okay. That makes sense.
and we're at spring training in Fort Myers. Um, there's a place called Gulf Coast Town Center, for those of you who don't know, which is where there's a bunch of good bars and restaurants all together, almost like a Patriot Place type of situation.
Except much bigger. It's
Um,
way bigger, right?
okay. Yeah, you're
I
right.
think.
I
I haven't
think
been to
you're
Patriot
probably right.
Place in forever. Maybe it's that big now. But
Yeah. So we go out to one of the bar. Do you know what the name it was?
it
It's
wasn't
probably
the
not
one that's there
straightforward.
now that we go to sometimes.
Yeah.
It wasn't Bar Louie, was it? No.
That's actually sounds right.
Does
That
it?
sounds right. So Bar
Maybe.
Louie, I think, and we just pull up to the bar.
I'm not
Um,
there yet.
there's two or three of us there. Um, Mel and Singer, me, Mel and Singer, maybe. Um,
That checks out. That
um,
checks out for time frame.
and it just so happens that a bunch of Red Sox players start rolling in and like setting up their shop around us, and they start getting after it. And I think they didn't have a game the next day, so go for it, man.
It's St. Patrick's Day and they
Right,
don't have a game the next day.
right.
There's no major league game the next day, which is not a thing anymore, by the way, is it?
Right. I don't know, but it's like Lackey and Ellsbury.
Who left early? I think Ellsbury left on the
Ellsbury
early
was
end.
like on the line.
Lester
And,
too.
John
Lester showed up and left
obviously,
early.
but they're all around us and like within that we can hear every piece of their conversation. And it's not like we jumped in to like spy on them. Like they were just happened to set up shop around us. And Darnell McDonald was there. That dude's pretty chill.
He was
And
very chill at the time.
yeah,
And I
very,
think that's
very
where
chill.
we'll leave that.
Yeah. And then handful of other guys. And Lackey is a little bit of the ringleader.
I think, as I recall it, he was very much the ringleader.
Right. Very well respected. For the people that were like, everybody hates John Lackey, like it was so evident that like he was like the dude that everyone was like really well respected. But then oddly, Bubba Bell is there, and he is like, all right.
People aren't going to know who Bubba Bell is.
Okay, fair.
Bubba Bell was an outfielder in the Red Sox system. Did he make it? Did he ever make the majors, Mike? I don't think he, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, he didn't. Yeah, minor winner in independent league statistics. Bubba Bell was nondescript. He was a 39th round pick out of Nichols State University in Louisiana in 2005. Incredibly nondescript until the Red Sox in 2007 moved their high A affiliate to Lancaster, California, at which point in 76 games, he hit 22 home runs.
370, 455, 665 with an OPS of 1120.
Won the league MVP despite being promoted in like July.
Yeah. It was
because his numbers were that much better than everyone else's.
Yeah.
So he becomes a dude. So that was 07. So I wonder if we have the year right, honestly.
But he keeps hitting a little bit.
It wouldn't have been 2011 because he wasn't with them. It was earlier than that.
Okay, fair.
Because he hit really well in Portland that year too. It turned out to not just be a Lancaster thing. But yeah, so this is, what's the chicken and beer Red Sox?
Chicken and beer year is 2011, so maybe it's a different year. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna try and pull up Bubba Bell's. Maybe they got rid of him that spring. Because I remember you know what? No, this checks out because I think that was the spring that they traded him for literally cash, just because it was one of those like, you're a good dude, you're never gonna play for the Boston Red Sox. Let's try and get you to an organization where like you might play.
So the aside is that he put up video game numbers, and some people on the site are like, "This is the number one prospect. What is wrong with you guys?" And we're like,
"He's not.
He's not. Trust us, please." And people are like, "Nope. Like, you have a guy that's hitting 230 as the top prospect, and like Bubba Bell's hitting 400. What's wrong with you?" But we're like, "He's not." But still, he's cool as shit, and he's like leading. He's like a minor leaguer in Portland. And he's like the ringleader of like telling people like, where's the next bar we're gonna go? Everyone's like, ask Bubba.
Yeah, like keep in mind, this is like the major league guys. This would be like the equivalent now would be like if in spring training, the major leaguers were out with like Christian Koss. Who did you say?
Philip Sykes.
Philip Sykes, sure. Christian, pick your like random minor leaguer who's like okay, like
Yeah.
pretty good. If that guy was hanging out with Rafael Devers and Trevor Story
Right.
and Brian Bay, like
And
it
Chris
just,
Sale and like calling the shots on where they're going.
yeah, and they were just like all like, oh man, look, Bubba's here. It was wild. My part of this is I came in that night because, and this is why it checks out that it's 2011 because I was in law school, so I only came in on Friday night, which was St. Patrick's Day that year.
Yeah.
And I come in, and you guys told me where you were, and I rolled in with like legit my suitcase,
I remember that.
and I rolled up to you guys, and y'all just point, like, look over here, and I'm just like, what is happening right now?
By that time, I think that everybody was pretty well,
Everyone's lit up. Yeah,
Yeah.
no question. Y'all were well lubricated. They were all pretty well lubricated, which is wild to think about with it being the chicken and beer year, if I'm being frank. Yeah, that was one of those first, like, and there are other stories that we probably can't tell or that just aren't really all that interesting outside of our, inside jokes. But there's one with like Dice K that doesn't make sense to tell. But
it definitely
yeah,
does.
yeah, he was actually traded. So he was traded March 31st. So he was traded later that month to the Indians at the time. Now that obviously the Guardians, but right, yes, exactly. So yeah, but that was one of those weird ones where it's just like close encounters. I don't know. And again, this is 2011, so we're still like we're not small potatoes at that point. Like we're doing ESPN Boston at that point, right?
Right, but
We're
nobody recognized us.
no one knows who we are. Not that they would have, not that they
They
recognize us
probably
now
would
even.
today. Right.
But if we went up and were like, "Hey, this is I'm Mike from Sox Prospects," they would have been like, "Yeah, and like, okay, what's that?"
Yeah.
Oh, they might
Right.
have known. Maybe they would have known.
Bubba Bell might have known, but like Lackey wouldn't have known. And like
No.
Ellsbury, maybe Ellsbury because he was a number one prospect, but like
Yeah,
he strikes me as
Lester
someone.
maybe. I talked to Lester in Worcester in Pawtucket, so maybe he would have known. I don't know. But yeah, that was just a funny one of just being like pre TMZ, they're just like us type situation, right? Like
Yeah.
it was funny. But yeah, baseball players are like us too. They like St. Patrick's Day. Is I think the long and short of that one. I don't know. What else was there anything else on that one?
No,
Trying to think if I'm
I think
forgetting
that
anything.
covers it.
Yeah, but I just remember being at the bar with my suitcase and rolling in and seeing John Lackey, just the life of the party, which is not a way I'm used to seeing him. I think that spring, Buckholtz would have been there too. Yeah, it was wild. It was wild. So, anyway, all right. Should we?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up. We're gonna get some guests on in a little bit here, or do we want to just? Should we? Should we just kick it to? Yeah, okay. So like, this wasn't necessarily how we're planning it, but we're gonna roll with it. We're joined now by the one and only John Mioli, previously mentioned on this segment of the show. I thought we were planning on cutting and then doing the whole intro thing, but John Mioli, formerly. Why are you not? No, don't shake your head. There's no shaking your head. Obviously, we've mentioned already. We've done the formerly of Sox Prospects ownership of the SoxProspects.com news page. Who was kind of the first one of us to move on to maybe bigger and better things, has covered the Baltimore Orioles for the Baltimore Sun. And I has gone on to start his own side gig after the Sun that he's still doing, covering the Orioles. John, welcome. It's always a pleasure. This is great. I've talked to both Chris Mellon and John Mioli today. This is amazing.
Wow, Mellon.
Yeah, we talked to Mellon too. We're talking to you. This is great. This is like Sox Prospects. This is your life.
I mean, that's got to be great. I mean, talking to Chris Mellon, talking to me is very secondary. I'm
no,
happy
it's
for
not.
everyone. I'm happy for everyone that gets to hear Chris Mellon talk. What's he doing? I can't wait to listen.
Yeah,
let's not waste our time talking about it. I'll just go back and listen.
Go listen to it. Yes. Well, so John, it was important to us to have you on when we're doing this kind of Sox Prospects 20 retrospective type situation, because you're obviously a huge part of that and the growth of the news page, growth of your career and with us as well. Maybe where we should start this is go chronologically, how you got involved with the site. I had a vague recollection that you started as a poster on the message board, but maybe that's wrong. Did you write for us first? I'm maybe conflating Mellon with you a a little bit.
I don't think I posted too much. I think that
I remember you had a New Haven. Did you have a New Haven Ravens logo as your icon for a minute, or am I thinking of someone else?
that wouldn't have been me. I don't
Okay,
think.
maybe I'm thinking
I
of
feel
someone
like
else.
I
Then.
started posting like when like I started seeing like
Started-
when I started seeing like whenever there would be like a job thing, we would be like
okay,
being active was encouraged, and I was like, I guess I should do that. But I
did
feel
not know
like I
that.
would. Yeah, I don't know. I was trying to think about it when you texted me yesterday. I feel like I saw the site for the first time from like the links on the side of like Boston Dirt Dogs or something like that. Like when I'm just
Okay.
like in a weird moment, of my life being on Boston Dirt Dogs, and that
Well, let's pause there because I think people aren't going to. Boston Dirt Dogs was a thing that could have only existed pre-Twitter, because there's no point for such a website to exist pre-Twitter, right? And it was just
correct.
basically like it was like early memes, essentially, right? Like headlines after games and stuff. Is that a fair
It's a little
description?
barstooly, maybe.
Yeah, it
But,
was like
Maybe
but
a
like
little bit.
if Barstool is for like 20-year-old dudes, this was for like 17-year-old dudes. It was like
yeah,
Maybe.
yeah. It was
Maybe.
irreverent.
Yeah.
I think we would like to say it's irreverent. It
Irreverent
was
is a
like,
good word. Yes.
it was the
yeah,
first
Love the
big
yeah.
Boston
link we
Dirt
got,
Dogs.
I think.
Yeah, so I found it, on the side there, and I was on the site for years, and I feel like I was in New Zealand studying abroad in like the summer of 2010.
Mhm.
When there was like a news post or like a news writer offering. I was a junior in college, and the gig was like write the cup of coffee like Friday, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights, which is such a dog, like a dog assignment, like obviously available. And but I really wanted to do it. Obviously I was like I thought like journalism writing was what I wanted to do, and I took a shot. I don't even know. I don't even think I would have had like clips to send at that point. I don't think I'd done anything for like school newspaper. Um, but I felt like I could do it. I also felt like being going to school in Baltimore at Loyola where I did, like I was intrigued by the idea of getting to see all the prospects and like those teams that only came were in the South. Portland was up north, but like Greenville and Salem would like come to the Baltimore area. And I was like, oh, this could be cool if I could get to do this. But yeah, junior year of college, living the life, doing a lot of, doing what people who just turned 21 do. And I'm just like sitting there waiting for MILB.com to like post what happened in the last inning of a of like a Greenville Canapolis game, so I could like send it in and get on with my life. But that was, I think I did that for like 1 or 2 years, and it was that was the start.
That sounds right. So we brought you in, you started as a writer, and at what point did we start having you do kind of featurey interview type stuff?
It would have been that summer, I think.
We
Summer
got
of
you going pretty quickly. I think we kind of knew what we had.
Yeah, it was
Frankly.
that summer. Would have been like summer of, I guess, yeah, or maybe I started. Sorry, this is what happens when you get old, right? You don't remember when anything happens. I guess it would have been the summer after my junior year, so I guess that would have been the summer of 2010. But 2009 was when I kind of applied. But yeah, I feel like it was around then I was home in Connecticut, and it was like I feel like I'd asked a couple times, and it was always like, yeah, sure. And then like one day, like Mikey emailed me out of the blue, like Portland was going to be in like New Britain near where I was, and he was like, hey, go talk to Casey Kelly, and like we'll do it on the ESPN Boston thing. And I was like, all right, let's go. We're doing this, and we did.
Can I jump in with something? Because I just found an email I sent to Mike March 14th of 2010. And it's my thoughts on the various applicants for our staff writer position we posted. And what I wrote for next to John Mioli is the one thing that jumped out at me, quote, notice the small things that could make the cup of coffee more than just recaps, such as player X hitting over 400 for the last 10 days or player Y's ERA ballooning over 7 during the month of June, end quote. That made my heart leap with joy. Seems like he really gets it. His clips look good.
Nice.
Good job, 2010, Chris. Love it. Nailed it. Awesome.
I don't want to like give away anything like, behind the scenes, but I remember like once I got added to like the mix, and I was like, in the inner circle, like there was all the archive stuff from like the staff board. And I feel like I might have seen like the thread about like the message board thread about that position. And it was one of those things that, I don't know if 34-year-old me would have like gone back and looked, but like 20-year-old me was like, I gotta see what they said. And like, obviously it worked out, but
yeah,
no bad things.
Yeah, no, so we offered you the position on March 24th as my next email. And I guess we hired you at the same time as Matt Hegel, who also went on to ownership. So that was a heck of a hiring season.
Good
All
hiring
right,
round, yeah.
so kind of, and I've already said on here, legit, and I'm serious about this, legit crying at one point when you said I was your first editor. Um, you went on to cover Major League Baseball team for the paper of record for that team, and you still cover that team. Kind of how did you grow with the site? Like what's kind of been your progression? Kind of, and it wasn't just with us, like you were writing for your school paper, you had clips as it turned out. And I've said on here, this is something that it was pretty clear early on you were going to be able to do professionally. Like, how did that progression work for you into going on to do this full time as your gig?
It's one of those things, especially when you talk about journalism, like there's like a barrier of entry of like having done it. And there's
Yeah,
no way to get to do it unless you get to do it. So
right.
so like it was really, I was incredibly fortunate, just to have the ability to go out. Like, I did a lot of stuff like, I was still in college, and like when I had a paper, like a newspaper job that wasn't, sports related, like just the ability to go to the ballpark and like get a feel for it, get a feel for, you know, how to talk to ball players, how to like talk to managers without getting them mad at you, which isn't always how
I
it went
have
at
been
that
yelled
point.
at by
You,
multiple minor league managers.
it's just like you kind of learn the feel. You learn how to talk to people. You learn how to you get there and you write. And it was really, really imperative to just have that experience. Even little stuff like I for the Orioles now, I do the Baseball America organizational rankings, and when I go to games, like I take notes on players the same way that I did 4 to 13 years ago. Like that's just
Mhm.
kind of the system that I made up. Chris Mellon had a part in that too. Sitting next to him
Mhm.
in like a Greenville trip one time, he was like, "How do you know what you're even like writing down?" And I was like, "Oh, I should probably figure that out. I should probably figure it out." And like it's the same note taking method the whole way through. It was just a really, really awesome avenue to get reps. And like I mentioned, it was really unique to get the opportunity. And I think you guys, I don't know if it was a me thing or just the you know the opportunity set that presented itself. But like when Salem would come to Frederick, like and those players hadn't been in the Northeast and for like a year, 2 years. We were like the site that was getting the stories on them because people cared about them, and
Mhm.
that was really, that was. I felt like it was like more high profile than anything I should have been doing at that point was, to the extent that it was even be considered having a profile. But it was just really, really, it was really helpful to get to do that and get those reps and kind of get noticed, and it opened so many doors. I mean, some of them are still opening.
John, kind of segue to, give an example of what you're talking about. I'm looking at an article on ESPN Boston right now, by you. It says at 19, Bogart's on the rise. Can you? I vaguely remember that being like somewhat of a big deal. That you built a relationship with Bogarts that like none of the beat writers had, and like us just watching um, Bogarts do an interview and pass by all of the actual beat writers, go right to you and like give you a hug. And I was like, damn, that's pretty impressive. Can you tell me about that article and whether that was kind of an example of that early stuff of getting that experience?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like he'd only been in Greenville for like a month then too. He was one of those guys that, I feel like Mellon heard about on like he went to Instructs and heard about him,
Yeah.
and he was down at Extended, and then he like was too good for that. And he went to Greenville in like June, and you said it was like July. Like he hadn't been there that long. And they came to Hagerstown, Greenville did. Um, and I was just, he was like totally cool to do it. And that's one of those things too, like, there are people that cover these teams, but like I think the opportunity to like talk for a lot of these players was really something, especially a young guy like him who was just trying to like make a name for himself. He's 19. He's not like he went to a big college and had like, got coverage. Um, and it was a really good conversation, a really good I think the piece turned out all right. And then next year he got invited to the WBC. and was playing for the Netherlands, and they got back right as we were all down in spring training. And it's like March at that point, like the end of March, like all the beat writers are just looking for anything to do. Speaking from experience, you're like anything that I could do that's not watch this spring training game, like sign me up. So they were all over there, and like they were all looking for him, and then like I just remember he like he noticed me, and he like pointed to me, and like I still have the picture of my ridiculous long hair of me doing that interview.
Oh,
Like
you had the flow at that point. That's
second
right.
time around. Yeah, it was
Listen,
it was really long. It was really gross, but I still have it. Not the hair, not the hair. I had long hair recently. That was also really long, really gross, but still have the picture. And it's just one of those things. And I still would see him when they come through Boston. Or when they come through Baltimore and I go up to Boston. I always made a point to go and say hey. And it wasn't like we were like, tight, but like, I tell him what's going on. I tell him I went to Aruba and I like saw this field, and he was like, "Why didn't you call me?" And I was like, "It's a really easy thing to say. It's really easy to say. You can say 6 months later." And I'm sure if I did get in touch with you would have like responded, but like I'm not gonna do that. But like he was just like he was a really nice guy, and you still see guys. I've seen Jackie Bradley Jr. recently, and this is stuff like you just like for the guys who like pay attention and like know who they're talking to on the player side, and like you know are interested in like continuing that relationship. It's great to catch up with them. I wish I could see Xander Bogaerts and give him a high five soon.
It's funny because I think seeing you develop relationships like that was one of the early parts. Like, yeah, like we've had a number of people who could really write come through the site, and you were clearly one of them. But like that ability to develop relationships like that with guys, frankly, I think is missing from journalism, full stop, to some degree right now. With a lot, I mean, outlets don't send their writers on the road all the time. Writers don't necessarily like they go down to the locker room after games and stuff like that. But just that rapport doesn't get developed the same way. In the Globe, they send in a different guy to write a feature sometimes, because of the time that's involved in following a guy around or something like that. And Tristan Casas feature or Hein Bloom feature or something like that. That's always been something that you've really, in my eyes, excelled at. But was that something that you kind of developed while you were, at that stage of your developing your skills in your career? Or is that just something that's always kind of come natural? I've always been curious about that.
I mean, I can't really talk to people like outside of a baseball stadium forum. This is probably the longest conversation I've had with anyone. That's not my wife. And God knows how long. So like, it's really fast. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it that way. But it's just so valuable. I work. There's basically you guys like Curb Your Enthusiasm people, right?
To some
Yeah,
degree.
some degree. Yeah.
Mike
So
probably more than me, but yeah.
yeah, so like basically there's like a spite store of a news outlet in Baltimore called the Baltimore Banner. I like they're like I'm like their Orioles columnist now, but I still do minor league stuff because it makes such a difference. The idea of like now, like, I've done like stories on Jackson Holiday at 3 different stops this year.
Mhm.
And now it's just like he sees me, he's like, "Hey man, how's it going?" Like, and we just joke about like what he did with all the hats from the last affiliate. And like, you just see these people and like I can't be at Camden Yards every day. I can't be at Camden Yards every day now. But it's okay because when this generation of Orioles are talking about like Austin Hayes and Ryan Mountcastle, like these are guys for less like that when they were in A ball and like high A, like you start that relationship and you just build it, and you're not just one of those guys that's in the big leagues and like doesn't care about where they came from, and they're just like it's not you have a deeper relationship. And I feel like there were a lot of examples in that time of guys being you know willing not only to like do the story but just talk afterwards and like talk next time you see them. And it wasn't like I was getting big scoops out of it, but you get better stuff when you're trying to talk to people when you have that kind of rapport with them. And I think that's really that started there. I don't know if it was intentional or I was trying to do it, but it was such a perfect match of like the opportunity and just the time to do it. It was really formative.
Mhm. One thing we've mentioned a few times on here is the spring training trip. Do you have any kind of favorite memories of heading down to Fort Myers
I have a ton of favorite memories. I
that
feel
that
like
you can talk about? We should
yeah, I mean,
probably
I feel like
preface.
I feel like I enjoyed all the sushi dinners. I feel like there was like a 3-year run where every year like it would be like day like 3 or 4 when everyone's really tired and like everyone's kind of doing stuff. And I got back to the hotel and me and Mike would just end up like floating in the pool, and he'd be like, hearing about my like, 20, 21, 22-year-old like nonsense of a life, and just
Living
like
vicariously.
giving me good save. No, not even that. Just giving me good sage advice on like, from a grown up perspective, on stuff that clearly
I was
probably
just saying
couldn't
that
use
on
to.
my segment of the podcast that I have a very distinct memory of two different years of just me and you in the pool, just talking about life.
Yeah.
I very distinct memory of it.
Yeah. And most of the stuff that you said probably resonated. You could hear screaming out on the sidewalk outside my row house right here. That's my daughter. Like my wife is the girl I was dating then. Like, things turned out all right. But I distinctly remember those. Like the baseball stuff was awesome. Getting a feel for kind of how the backfields worked was great. It's so much fun stuff. You guys didn't talk about like cut day, right?
No,
how
No.
excited certain people who get about cut
No.
day. Like
No, that's
I would
not my
I would feed
game.
into that a little
we
bit.
talked about Mr. Singer.
Yeah, legend in his time. It was just such a great experience. But yeah, like if we're talking about like the core memories, it's the sushi dinners. I might have not eaten sushi before the first time I went to that.
Oh, was it you? I was thinking it was Ian. Maybe it
Or
was
maybe
you
I
then.
had. I was not a big sushi person. I feel like
Yes.
it was a lot of
Okay, maybe it was you and not Ian then.
yeah, and then the pool chats, and it was not planned. It was just like, and there's not
Organic.
a lot better than being in the pool in Florida at like 5 o'clock at night. It's just
Yeah.
like it's a good
Nice.
time. It's a good
Nice,
time. I
dude.
still remember those. I'm glad you heard it too, Mike.
Definitely. We're trying to think what else we got at Mike. I know you got to drop yourself soon, but anything else for Mr. Mioli while we have his precious time on here to talk about site things or what have you.
So we were just talking about the and I it's a very vague memory. We were talking about Bar Louie when John Lackey was there and that whole crew. Were you there that night?
Yeah,
That
Mike Cameron
reaction,
rolled
he's
out.
clearly there.
Yeah, Mike Cameron rolled in too.
Mike
Oh, right.
Cameron was there. Yeah, he
Right,
was.
right. He was cool as shit. He was blinged out.
Yeah, that was a guy that was a cool guy. I just had a really funny. This is super random. Did Hatfield tell you I saw him in a game like last month?
No.
This is
Yeah.
this is going to be great audio. He showed me highlights of your daughter's basketball because I was like,
Yeah, I did.
oh, Mike's got to be like, I said something about like looking at colleges. It's like
Yeah.
he's got a basketball star in his hand, and just
Yeah.
like just knowing like vaguely what I like see on like
Right.
Facebook, whatever. He was like, yeah, actually, and he like pulled out highlights. I was like, so
Nice.
great. She had some game.
Yeah, that's my second side hustle. My first side hustle is Sox prospect. My second side hustle is being my daughter's social media manager for her basketball career.
Hey, I hope that all these skills that I'm accumulating in life can advance my daughter's athletic career or life
There you
in some way. Because I know it's not going to be financially, but I hope that I can do something to make her lot in life better.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, I guess we haven't really talked specifically about this, but since we can actually pimp what you're doing now, apparently I'm holding my dog making a thumbs up, and Zoom thinks I want to do a thumbs up emoji. That's funny.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So I guess tell people where they can find your stuff now, because the fact that you've been able to cover the Orioles, by the way, during this period is incredible. Like,
Yeah,
with
it's
the
been
process
a
they've
lot.
gone through, like this is literally perfect for you. But where can they find your stuff now with the banner, et cetera, and Twitter and whatnot?
Yeah, so it's called thebaltimorebanner.com. We have a couple fantastic beat writers. There's another full-time columnist. I'm like a part-time, I just write, basically I was doing my newsletter after I left the Sun last year, and they were like, come do it for us. I still have like a civilian job, but it's really, really, it's the kind of stuff that people who like really like want to get in the weeds about a team are gonna want to read. And there's a lot to get into the weeds about the Orioles. There's a lot of parallels. It's not like they're just spending like $3 million on like their top 6 draft picks and like and blowing
Right.
through the bonus rules and like building it that way. But like there's so many parallels to like when the Red Sox got on like the upswing, and the fact that the team I was just happened to be covering, that was basically like, throwing rocks up against the wall and hoping to make fire for 3 years, hired like smart people who like hired really smart people who did and cared about exactly what I cared about, like as a baseball writer and fan,
Sure.
was is it was fantastic. You know, I life stuff, man, I couldn't see it through, like being there on the road every single day. Um, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but the idea that this is all like happened, it's I feel like it was honestly really good practice, like writing about the site and following the Red Sox through that period. I remember sitting with somebody in the front office in like 2011 in like Frederick when Salem came through. And there was like 6 of the top 12 prospects in the organization
Right.
were on Salem's infield, and he was like, "Hey, we got like $15 million on that infield. Does that scare you?" I was like, "It should scare you." Like, and I think there are a couple guys that made it, but not as many as you think for that much
Mhm.
money.
Was Skinny Vinny there probably at that point? Because that's 2 million right there.
Gosh, if I had to guess right now, it would be like Swihart was catching,
Okay.
Henry Owens with then like
Oh, that probably would have been Devin
Bikini-
Marrero, Mookie
Bikini,
Betts.
Marrero, Coyle, Shaw around
Oh,
the infield or
gosh,
something
maybe,
like that.
yeah.
And
I like it.
probably, you know, probably somebody who has like 2 World Series rings in the outfield. I don't know which one it would be, but probably one of them.
Probably. Fair. All right, let me maybe leave you with this while we've got you on here. What do you think the chances are that Sig Megdal is a candidate for the Boston gig?
I have not talked to Sig about this. I have no inside knowledge. I know that one of the things that they really value about being here, and it's not like they didn't have it in Houston. They had pretty, you know, they had pretty like smooth sailing, but like I think everyone that works for the Orioles right now really enjoys like the synergy and like the frictionless existence that they have. And they can kind of do what they feel is right and don't really have to explain it to everybody, even if it's not like the normal thing to do. And
Mhm.
I feel like there aren't a lot of places that that could happen elsewhere, and I feel like Boston is not one of those places that that could happen elsewhere.
The
So
subtext was clear.
yeah, so, you know, I'm sure he would love to get a call. I'm sure that that would mean that he might get a raise here. But so that would be good for him. But I would be pretty surprised, but we'll see how this year plays out. Maybe, you know, maybe they win a World Series and they're all off to do new things, but probably not.
All right, I like it. You heard it here first. Mike, anything else before we cut Mr. Mealy loose?
That's it.
Because I know
Thanks,
we don't have
thank
you
you
for
s-
much longer. All
Thank
right,
you so much for coming
Thanks
on,
so much,
John.
guys.
It's
I
This
great
is
really
talking
awesome.
to you.
yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. I appreciate you taking the
Yeah,
chance.
we got to
and
talk soon.
yeah, we'll
We
run
got
it
we got to
back for
schedule one of
SP30.
these buoy games or something so we actually can like hang out beforehand.
I
Or something.
know. I know, that'd be great.
At
I'll
least
be
I
here for it.
recognized you this time. That was one of my great shames working at the website is I saw you at a Frederick game and you had both a beard and a flow. And I legit like you said hi to me and I didn't know who you were. It was horrible.
For shame.
I was horrified. I was like, this is one of my favorite people in the world, and I didn't recognize him. It was awful.
Well,
So
I'm sorry I didn't get to return the favor when you had your beard and flow.
it's all right. It's okay. It happens.
All right.
All right, brother.
Awesome, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you.
All right, well, that'll wrap up this episode of the 2-part SoxProspects.com anniversary podcast. It's been 20 years. It's wild to think about. Again, this is just part 1. Part 2 is coming up soon. As we mentioned, we've got former director of scouting Chris Mellon on the next episode. Mike and I spoke to him, discussed some good times, life at the website about a decade plus ago. Talked to him and as well. It's me, Mike, Ian, and James, the Sox Prospects brass, as we refer to ourselves, in a long form discussion on the next episode as well. So we hope that you all find this interesting. As we mentioned, you can follow us on Twitter, SoxProspects.com, Twitter and Instagram, or X, whatever the heck Twitter's called. You know what I mean. You can follow me at SP Chris Hatfield. You can follow Mike at Mike Andrews SP, although he doesn't really use that account very much at this point. You can follow John Mioli at John Mioli. That's JONMEOLI. Follow him for some terrific Orioles coverage. It's a team to follow these days. I know you're all here for the Red Sox, but John's a good dude, and you know him going on to such success has been great to see. But we hope that you all enjoyed this episode. We hope that you all enjoy this look back, and we hope you'll stick around for episode 2 coming later this week. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. We'll be back in your eardrums soon.